Chapter 5. What is on your mind? Back to the outskirts of downtown Atlanta of where he lived. Bradley's house was your typical suburban house. A medium white colored home. A picket fence representing a secure and protective force field. Bradley uttered to himself as he passed by a centaur statue. Such a bubble that encases us with sheer comfort. Repels the dangerous evil forces that would dare harm this lovely neighborhood's energy. The suburbs may look generic with its familial structure, despite every house being colored differently and some animal statues are set up. Despite every house being colored differently and some animal statues being set up. Those are mere traits this standard American neighborhood holds as part of its sporadic charm. It is as if each beastly statue represented a lifestyle of the household breadwinner spirit. One house had a statue of a unicorn. The other had a dragon. Another a phoenix. Another half man, half hawk. There was even a dog-faced pharaoh-looking one. The statues weren't just representing regular animals, but represented mythical and legendary creatures. Some people claim that these type of decorations are the new trend for lawns. The usual and normal garden gnomes are now replaced by these unusual sculptures. Faux pas approach of being artsy. Ugh. Gotta love Middle America. A newly placed statue of a large American bald eagle was standing tall in front of his house. Bradley beamed at it briefly. He then puffed his chest as the eagle was doing before he walked in. "Mom!" Bradley yelled out from the door while getting rid of his shoes with his feet. "I'm home. What's for lunch?" The well-built young athlete kicked his shoes to the side. He then threw his bag on the sofa, while he slumped beside it while going for the remote. Bradley then turned on the TV, or as he and his old man would like to call it at times, the tube. A straight-haired, light-blonde, blue-eyed woman in her mid-30s walked in the living room. She was wearing a neat purple shirt and a grey long business skirt with her cooking apron still on. "I made your favorite," Bradley's mother joyfully replied. "Meatloaf with gravy and mashed potatoes, alongside a dish of mac and cheese." Bradley said as he closed his eyes and patted his core. "Sweet. You're the best, Ma. But I think I should cut back on the carbs. Feel like I'm getting a bit bulky. I want to slim down to get ripped so I can acquire more speed and agility for my training." "Nonsense!" growled a gruff voice. A man in his mid-40s walked in. He had messy brown hair, a square grizzled face with a scar on his left cheek, and brown light flecks of a beard. His eyes were brown and warm. He wore an unbuttoned denim dress shirt with nothing underneath but his hairy and muscular build. He also wore a pair of Wranglers with a bullhorn belt buckle that kept it up. The pair of cowboy boots he had on were over the ankles of his pants. They were brown and haggard enough you would think they would be dated back all the way to the 1800s. He walked slowly and hugged his wife from behind as he wrapped his testosterone-filled forearms and biceps around her waist. "It's necessary to have bulk and brawn over speed and agility," the grizzly old man yelled out. "You gotta form a strong defense for your teammates. Your mother knows what I'm talking about." "Steven!" Bradley's mother shouted at her husband as her cheeks got rosy. "What?" the old-timer inquired. "Nothing wrong with a man telling his son how to become a steed like his father. You doing well with your grades, boy? How's that practice going for ya?" Stephen's face all of a sudden became serious and full of grit, while chewing on his toothpick. "They're good, sir," Bradley mumbled. "I guess." "Eh?" Stephen shouted as he cupped his ear and leaned towards his only son. "What's that, boy? I couldn't hear y'all." "I said they're good," Bradley replied quickly and a bit louder. "Good?" Stephen said in a mocking tone. "Now, Steve," the kind mother retorted as she casually freed herself from his arms, "don't start with that boring, hard work, 24/7 no man's land lecture you keep drilling in our heads. Take it easy on the boy for once." "Give me a break, Sally," Stephen replied gruffly as he threw his hands in the air. "You should know how it goes by now. Ever since you first married this hard-working, blue-collared, old-school country folk." "Yes," Sally said while heading to the kitchen near the living room to cut up some vegetables, "but I also married a considerate and loving person who was committed no matter what country skirt at the time walked by. I remember you looking down on the ground whenever a pretty girl flaunted by when we were engaged, remember?" "That's because I respect you," Stephen firmly said. "Back in my day and in our household, women were sacred and needed respect. Back in the day when morals and values had more meaning and were appreciated. Unlike today's generation, especially them city folks." "Now what's that supposed to mean?" Sally said in an offended tone as she turned to her husband. "Not all city folks are bad. You are married to one, for heaven's sake." Sally then turned away from him, folded her arms, and pouted. "I ain't apologizing," Stephen barked. "You city folks are lousy. I'm surprised a decent girl like yourself was conceived from that cesspool. Thank God I saved you from your family. Ha ha ha. Now go make me a sandwich, woman." "Ugh," Sally scoffed as she walked off angrily. "Make your own darn sandwich." "Now, boy, see here," Stephen coached as he turned his attention to Bradley. "I don't accept good for an answer. When performance is in question, don't make me forcefully substitute your coach this time instead of only subbing for him on absent days. I want perfect, excellent, or extraordinary for an answer, you hear?" Bradley nodded silently. "I don't believe in impossible," Steve grimaced with his eye twitching as he was shaking his finger at his son. "Hard work pays off, and you bet your bottom that I didn't raise a wuss who would settle for less. Your grandparents didn't get their ranch on the silver platter like most of these city schmucks. High-class, polished plastics that are too afraid to get their hands dirty. Why, Stephen then shook his head as if he wanted to dust off whatever negativity was piling up on him. "Anyhow, let's go in the kitchen and grab some grub," Stephen remarked. "I'm starving." They both went in and sat on the tables. Steve put his hands on his wife's shoulders as she was putting the food on the table. "I might have something against your city folks," the grisly patriarchal figure whispered in his spouse's ear. "But you're dead wrong about me not respecting you or appreciating your duties in this household." He leaned his forehead against the back of her neck. "I love you, woman," Stephen said. The motherly figure turned around. "You sure know how to get this uptown city girl swooned," Sally said in a loving tone. "Sally, my lovely city gal." "Stephen, my cowboy." Stephen kissed his significant other's forehead and held her tight. "Get a room," Bradley smiled while shaking his head. After dinner, Bradley went upstairs to his bedroom, letting his parents enjoy their quality time in the living room. The accomplished athlete entered his room, which was filled with numerous trophies and medals, highlighting his decorated career thus far. His junior amateur wrestling trophy, his junior high swimming medal, his soccer medals, his junior summer Olympic trophies and marathon gold medals are all signs of being the standard bearer for excellence. Despite these extraordinary accolades, it was still an ordinary room of a typical teenage athlete. The Adidas and Nike brand wardrobe hung neatly in the closet. The Air Nike shoes was well situated in a box underneath the bed. Axe deodorant and Old Spice cologne scents filled the room in abundance, products conveying the sanctuary of a sportsman's constant urge for cleanliness that can wash away the smell and perspiration of competition. Posters of favorite athletes plastered against the wall. Tony Romo looking fiercely in the pic, while another poster shows Tim Tebow doing his infamous Tebowing pose. I can relate to the scrutinizing of the media this man gets, Bradley monologues yet again. I feel like a hard-working athlete that is constantly criticized for his ideals, that no matter whatever he believes and stands for, it is deemed wrong nowadays. Bradley then laid in his bed that had the spreadsheet of the Dallas Cowboys, as his dad is from Texas, not to mention his favorite football team. He leaned to his side and pulled out his laptop, which was placed on his small study office desk. He then quickly pulled out his journal from his back pocket of his denim jeans and started to write in it. He scribbled away his thoughts in a form of streams of consciousness, run-on sentences and fragmented dialogue, as if he was brainstorming a draft or an outline of some sort. He then grabbed his multivitamins from his Letterman jacket. He downed them with some days-old Gatorade that was also placed on the small desk. He then opened his laptop and put his Dre Beats headphones on. He had multiple tabs open: YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, etc. Bradley started to scroll through his Facebook profile page and looked at his friends' list. Mostly family, relatives, and school staff. He then put the laptop aside and looked up at the ceiling with his hands behind his head, listening to some Blink-182. He then slowly opened his eyes and looked over his left shoulder where the laptop was glaring in his face. "What is on your mind?" Facebook shamelessly asked. Bradley paused for a moment, then figured out his status. He typed in, "Sigh. Welcome to Eagle High."